Brought to us tonight by A.J. Saber from Grace Apostolic Church.
Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A.J.?
Let's pray. Lord, we love you. We thank you, Jesus, for this great day. We thank you for your many blessings. Lord, we ask that you would bless and anoint this meeting today. And God, we ask that you would give us divine direction and favor so that your will may be done in this city as it is in heaven. Lord, we love you and we give you all the glory, honor, and praise. In Jesus' wonderful name, amen.
Thank you, A.J. And in case I didn't say it, meeting called to order. And roll call, please.
Mayor Milan.
I am here.
Councilmember Anderson.
Here.
Councilmember Sampson.
Here.
Welcome back. Councilmember Shepherd.
Here.
Councilmember Tinlin.
Here.
That's a quorum, Madam Mayor.
Great. Well, let's move on to approval of the agenda.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve the agenda.
Support.
I would like to make a motion first. Madam Mayor, I'd like to...
There's already a motion and support.
Oh, sorry.
So it's...
I didn't give anyone the floor, so does that count?
He can amend the
You
motion.
can amend,
You can make a motion to amend.
you can do it as a motion.
Make a motion to amend.
To amend, sir.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to amend.
Support.
Thank you.
That's what I got.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Tinlin, just state exactly what your amendment would
Oh,
be.
okay.
Yeah, and then,
I would like to remove from the agenda items 9A and 9B for the DDA reappointment from the agenda tonight.
still support.
Okay. Any other
I'll support for discussion.
discussion? Would anyone like to discuss?
Well, the reason for my motion was we're working on the reappointment process. Matter of fact, we're going to be having that meeting tomorrow afternoon. So again, just until we have that reappointment process in place, I'd just like to have that done first, since we now know that the members can stay in their seats until we get that done. That's my reasoning.
Okay.
Anyone else? Then roll call, please.
And this is the amendment to the agenda.
Correct.
Okay. Mayor Milan.
Yes.
Councilmember Sampson.
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Yes.
Councilmember Tinlin.
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Okay, so A and B are moved.
Okay, so we've approved our
The agenda as amended.
agenda as amended, which lets us move on to public comment.
No, you need to approve the
Oh,
agenda
sorry,
as amended.
sorry.
Yes.
I was lumping them together because it's so much
I know.
quicker.
It's easier, but...
Okay, then let's, may we have a motion to approve the agenda that has been amended?
We did.
Or is that? We just need to vote.
You just need to vote.
We had a
Okay.
motion to do.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Mayor Milan.
Yes.
Councilmember Sampson.
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Yes.
Councilmember Tinlin.
Yes.
We have an agenda, folks.
Thank you. A revised agenda.
A revised amended agenda.
Thank you. We'll move on now to public comment for items on the agenda. If you'd like to speak for any item that is currently on our agenda, you may come to the podium and state your name, and we will, and address, and we'll allot you 3 minutes.
Susan Moffett, 726 Drion. Just wanted to comment on item 9E. I hope that the council does not approve this measure. I think that the citizens are not interested in being nickeled and dimed with a bunch of millages. If we do any millage, it should be, or tax in any way, shape, or form. We need to look at the roads. But my biggest objection to 9E is that it talks about advertisement and funds for those kinds of things. And there's a big concern that's been expressed many times up here at this podium about the senior citizens who don't have access to the internet. And I'm not stereotyping, they've come here and spoke about wanting the city to put the council meetings back on some other medium other than the internet. So they used to be on cable, and if there's any funds or anything that's going to happen, that should be first priority. We shouldn't be looking to advertise and attract other people until we address the people who've already expressed interest in participating. That's all I got.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? Then we will close public comment at this point and move on Item 7 is proclamations and presentations, which we have none this evening. And then we'll move on to item number 8, which is consideration of approving the following consent agenda. Item A would be minutes of the regular city council meeting held on Tuesday, March 21st, 2023, as presented. Item B, minutes of the special city council meeting held on Wednesday, January 11th, 2023, as presented. And item C, a list of bills in the amount of $52,110.90.
And Mayor, move the consent agenda be approved.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Sampson?
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Yes.
Councilmember Tinlin?
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Mayor Milan?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have approved our consent agenda, and we will move on to item number 9, which is new business. As you know, we just removed items A and B from the agenda from this evening, so we move on to item number C, which is a public hearing and consideration of the second reading and adoption of an ordinance to amend the City of Clawson Code of Ordinances, Chapter 34, Article 10, Section 3.1M.2, to medical offices in the BRD1 district. Someone like to make a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the second reading of the ordinance to amend the City of Clawson Code of Ordinance, Chapter 34, Article 10, Section 3.1, M2, to medical offices in the BRD1 district be approved and ordered published.
Support.
Okay, this is a public hearing, so I'd like to call the public hearing open. Would anyone like to speak? Seeing no one making their way to the podium, we will close the public hearing. Do we have any council comments?
Maybe we have the city attorney just quickly tell everybody why we did this, or Nick can do it.
Yeah, I was going to pass it to Nick after we heard comments, if anyone had any.
Yeah, I could just provide another little brief update on this. So a few months ago, we were approached by a potential developer on a property that wanted to put a medical office into our BRD 1 district. And at the time, they are not permitted in that district while there is a business similar already operating there in the BRD 1. And so we believe that this was just an oversight when the previous master plan was done with the zoning ordinance. So this is essentially just allowing medical offices to operate in the district, which we already have one operating there anyway. So
How many permits we got outstanding or wanting to get a permit? Anybody coming to get a permit?
for the medical offices,
Yeah.
well, we just have one interested party in a property in that district right now. And it's not necessarily a permit. They are tentatively waiting on the purchase agreement to see if this gets approved.
And just to recap, that the district is only on South Main Street from?
Correct.
Okay. I can't remember what street it is. It's Nakota or?
Yeah, it's a couple blocks. I don't have it in front of me. I apologize, but it's from about there down to just the Royal Oak border.
Okay, on Chippewa. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's correct.
Both sides of the street?
Yes.
Anyone else? Okay, roll call, please.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Yes.
Councilmember Tinlin?
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Mayor Milan?
Yes?
Councilmember Sampson?
Yes.
Thank you. So we have just
Published
moved
accordingly.
to approve the second reading of an ordinance to amend the City of Clawson Code of Ordinances, Chapter 34, Article blah, 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 for medical offices in the BRD1 district to be approved and ordered published, and you will, as I just cut you off, will publish it, so sorry. Thank you. We'll move on to the next item, which is discussion of cost allocation planning as it relates to fiscal year 2023, 2024, or 2024 budget. Kelly, are you going to address this, or would you like to start us off?
Sure, I can just,
Thank you.
if you would, Madam Mayor. The council received information regarding cost allocation planning in the previous weeks for their consideration, preparation for discussion. We'll be handing out an updated version with some minor additions.
Okay, my fault, I didn't do the motion. Allow a motion first.
I'm still explaining.
Okay.
So The cost allocation plan is building on last year's efforts to show true cost of operations of respective departments. The genesis of this effort comes from the City Council's hiring of Municipal Analytics in October of '21 to produce various financial tools. Finance Director Kelly Rao is present to facilitate discussion.
Okay, would someone please make a motion so we can discuss?
I don't believe a motion is necessary. This is just a discussion right now.
No action item, so.
Okay. Kelly?
Good evening, Kelly Rao, Finance Director. You did get a handout, one with the original agenda packet, giving a brief explanation of cost allocation plan. So as Mr. Raker stated, we did enter into an agreement with Municipal Analytics to provide a financial model, to provide updated user fee schedule, as well as a labor model. So in order to accurately justify any user fees increases or decreases, a cost allocation model is required for that justification. So what a cost allocation model does is it takes the cost of various central services departments, such as treasurer's office, clerk, city manager, DPW, finance. It allocates those costs based on various measurements, and it will allocate those across all departments and all funds. We do not collect the revenues from general fund because they'll just go charge general fund and go back into general fund, so we don't do that entry. We do, however, would charge any fund outside of general fund. We would use that. So as part of, bear with me here, this is recouping capturing any revenues for these other funds. So if the treasurer's office were to cut checks for the library, for instance, they should be charging them. If the treasurer's office didn't do it, the library would pay somebody else to pay their payroll checks, to pay their vendors. So that's kind of how it works. So we made various reports. I worked with John Kazor at Municipal Analytics, provided him a full detailed list of some of the measurements that included budgets, included number of staff, included number of receipts, property tax receipts. It also included invoices, cost of bank recs. So, for instance, maybe 10% of my time is allocated to reconciling bank statements. So then that cost of my entire budget would be allocated to all the departments. So in the end, the total revenue that general fund can capture for FY24 is $571,000. So I did a quick computation right before the meeting, and if we had done this for, say, the past 10 years, using a 5% increase each year, we would have collected in the general fund about $2.2 million, which could have then be used for infrastructure, different capital improvements. So that is where we stand, and it will also justify the user fee schedule that we will be bringing to you along with the budget.
So in capturing funds from one to the other, is this the same as the one we were given? Are there
there's
any
a-
changes to this? Is this the same that
The
was in the
last
packet?
2 pages were updated.
Okay, because I read the other one. I just want to know what
It's
to go back and look
not
at.
updated much, it's just kind of, the layout looks
Okay.
prettier with a couple additional paragraphs.
So when you're doing chargebacks, so basically you're charging back
Correct.
certain, like, the user fees, of course, are monies that come in, right? But then, like, a lot of this is just chargebacks to other departments. How drastically does it affect departments?
Well, the funds that we would charge would be refuse, DDA, library, senior
senior
citizen
citizen, yeah.
housing, water and sewer fund, motor pool. Now, we do currently charge some of those funds already, just not this amount. It could be lower or higher. I think most of them are higher, but this is a more accurate reading of what we should be charging.
So,
So the charges that we've been charging the various funds in the past several years have remained the same for years. So,
some of the, like, DDA, library, and senior citizens, housing have very small budgets in the first place. So is this something that's going to be paralyzing to them in any way?
So-
Because small amounts can be paralyzing for small budgets,
correct.
right?
That is correct. So we did have discussions with the library director. She had been telling her board for years that
It's coming.
they should be paying something. The DDA currently is being charged $12,500, so it would be an additional hit. My recommendation through the city manager, and it would be entirely up to city council and city manager, is for year one to have general fund contribute 40% of those additional costs this year. And then we would have a plan for future years.
Because it's great for the general fund, just not great for departmental funds. Does anyone have any comments or questions for Kelly?
Well, it is, again, just revenue that we should have been capturing all along.
No, I
Every
get it. It's
city
just-
does it, and it's, when we start getting all these federal grants, they will require us to also have a cost allocation plan in place in order for us to charge the grant 10% of our administrative costs, so.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it's a shock to the system when you start implementing. And again, motor equipment's probably fine, water and sewers, fine, refuse, fine. The other ones are just smaller, and like a small amount will just affect them. That's all I was thinking. So.
Understand.
I know you understand more than me, but it's just the obvious, right?
Yes, it is, but, either we continue down the path and not do capital improvements, or, where is the happy medium? And if we don't charge these fees, then the user fees will go down, because then we cannot justify what the cost of those user fees are.
Can you take one project and tell the audience out there what the difference would be this year compared to next year? This year it comes out of here and here, but next year it's going to explain how the two.
So, for instance, the DDA, currently they're paying $12,500. With the cost allocation, they would be charged $33,000. For library, they haven't been paying anything, as far as I could tell, for the past several years, and theirs would be an increased cost of $68,000. So they've been, some of the departments, not all of them, have been building up their fund balance really on the backs of general fund.
What were the library numbers? I'm sorry, I missed.
68,000.
I heard
And
6,800, and I knew that was wrong.
They are currently not being charged anything for city services. Same for water and sewer and.
Yeah.
So Kelly, to kind of recap, you've got 6 different groups: Refuge Collection Fund, Downtown DDA, Library Fund, Senior Citizen Housing, Water and Sewer, Motor Equipment Fund. You're saying for years, those 6 groups have essentially had their overhead costs carried by the city in its general fund.
Not all of it, but a majority of it. So, for instance, like I said, DDA has been paying $12,500. Motor pool has been paying, I have $5,000, but I'm pretty sure it's higher than that. Water and sewer have been paying $180,000 a year, and senior housing has been paying $10,000 a year.
Okay.
So tell us what the services are. Like, what's a DDA getting for $12,500 today that they're going to be paying $33,000 in the next
So the
several years.
DDA is having their budgets reviewed. They're having AP invoices paid. They're having payroll processed. They're having receipts invoiced. They're having DPW services, whether it be lawn, snow, or anything in the DDA district. We did take, for instance, the DPW went back for the past 9 months and calculated how much time they spent within each fund, whether it be library, water and sewer, DDA, housing, senior housing. So we're not going to charge for salt, for a pound of salt. We're just going to take that, because that would be very complicated to keep track of that, and we'd need 5 more people to do that. So it's a general guideline using the closest numbers that we have, and each year after, we would look at the prior year, take another look at those numbers, and then allocate going forward. So each year, they would be adjusted based on activity from the prior year.
And then what's the percentage you may have already said this, what's the percentage that you plan on factoring into the upcoming budgets? Have you determined that?
My recommendation is for general fund to provide 40%.
you said 40%. That's right,
40%
yeah.
transfer into those funds.
Yeah.
Well, DDA and library.
And then every year you'll incrementally get them to,
I
your goal is to get them
hadn't
up.
thought about that, but my recommendation is not to do any transfers, but it would be entirely at the recommendation of city manager and city council.
From year 1 to year 2, what type of change do you think we would be? I'd be hard pressed to think that in 1 year's time, the DDA would be able to make up $40,000.
I'm only looking at year one.
Right, no.
Yeah.
But it
So-
is a true accounting cost. Those are just.
Until I get a good
Yeah.
feel on what council and the city manager wants and what the departments, are, it is the true cost. So even though we're general fund, I'm recommending giving those funds an allocation from general fund, if next year you want to keep it at 40%, or next year you want to do 20 or 10, it's very flexible
40% of what?
of what the current cost allocation is.
Well, their actual cost is.
So for instance, let's take DDA, they got 33,000. If you take 40% of that is, I think it's like 17 is what I'm thinking. The reason I took 40% was because I actually used DDA as an example. So in order for them to be closer to what they're paying currently, that's where I got the 40% from. So it didn't hit their budget so hard on year one.
Yes.
So to the point of the general fund funding it, it would probably be a continuation of that, but a further demonstration of the true cost, with the understanding that going forward, the council has to make those appropriations to demonstrate the overhead supporting costs from central services to effectuate those continued operations.
Yeah, the cost would be the 33,000 every year or whatever
it's not
is
gonna go
adjusted.
away necessarily.
But then if council wanted to provide general fund dollars to those different funds rather than doing any other type of project, it would be in the budget as a transfer in from general fund.
So is that how it's going to look this year on the budget?
Yes, and you
Yes.
saw
So
a
no
little
one's
bit-
really behind, right? You're just taking money from here and
you saw
putting
that.
it there. Like, we have to allocate it there instead of in this pool, right? We're divvying it up to smaller pools.
If you recall last year, like, we kept on reminding you, like, the increase is because we put fringes and
Yeah.
wages in with the departments, and that was always like, you guys saw that, and that, so this is just building on that same method of appropriations.
For several years, the general fund it's been on the backs of the general fund,
Yeah.
all those different costs. So slowly, we are getting the cost to where they should be charged.
Makes sense. It's good. It's a good tool, so you can actually have an adequate picture of what something's costing you.
Yes.
Like where we're putting our,
Right.
You said you
True
didn't
picture.
charge by a pound of salt, but when you said how long DPW was in the city, how long did he spend in there? Now, was that to salt the roads or to salt the sidewalks?
Any services they did for DDA district, any services they did for the library.
Main
any
Street and 14, is that a DDA or is that a city?
DPW knows how much time they spent specifically on DDA and library and
Yeah.
senior housing. So
I can see,
they keep track of all that
I can see
information.
tracking the parking lot, but not Main Street in front of it.
They know which part is DDA.
That intersection right there, the roads, is considered part of our major streets, so not exactly
Yeah,
part of the
not the
DDA.
roads.
That's what
The
it's
roads are
asking.
charged separately, although we're only allowed to charge up to 10% for major and local roads.
You're very nice. This is a lot nicer than the people I pay to do landscaping at my office because their salt charges are way more than their labor charges. I'm just telling you. It's a revenue stream there.
Okay. Just go back, we're using DDA as example. You said they were currently at $12,000? Is that what you said?
12.5.
12.5, okay. And so based off their 40%, you're saying it gets up to 17 roughly, which is half of whatever their
It was
should be?
approximately 40.
Okay. Okay.
Does the revenue cover what they're gonna need?
Pardon me?
Will their revenue cover what they're gonna need, the 17 or the 30?
Based on the budget I have from DDA currently, yes, they have enough revenue to cover their requests.
I'm sorry.
We're going to factor this in when we do budgeting. Like, they're moving the money from one,
Right.
instead of general fund, it's going to go to these 5 pockets, right? So the money's still there. We're kind of giving it to them. Because that's kind of my first thing was like, this could get them out of business, right? DDA budget so small, and library too. But we're just moving it so that we have an accurate picture of what we're spending and where we're spending. So instead of this big pile, we're taking pieces out of there and putting it here, 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 and here.
So in the budget, you'll see appropriations from the general fund transfers in, correct? These
To
various-
only 2 funds. I'm not giving an allocation to senior citizen housing, motor pool, or water and sewer fund.
Because they're better self-sustaining
Yes.
entities?
Yes.
Good. Okay, sounds good. Any other questions, comments?
It's just unclear on the math. All these groups are going to see an increase. Instead of hitting with 100%, we're going to hit them with 40%. Is it
Only 2
40%?
Two
groups.
of them.
Only 2. Is it 40% of the increase or 40% of the entire amount?
40% of the entire amount listed on the report provided you today.
Okay.
So library had 68,000, it would be 40% of that. I'm recommending general fund provide a contribution.
Okay.
So this was just intended to socialize this concept, so when you hear it again during the budget workshop and during the budget presentation, you're like, okay, I got it. I'm building off last year, doing it this year, and if we have to discuss it some more, we can, but it's just along the lines of how I coined it, a budget primer, just so that you have something to work with.
So the expectation for each of these departments is to include this in their presentation on what they're going to be requesting for funds, or?
Well, I don't think all of these are necessarily,
Just
these are
2.
funds.
Just
They're
2,
not-
okay,
Just 2.
just 2, all right.
And we'll continue to provide the clarification as we go through the budget process.
All right.
Anything else?
You said you had more questions. I must
I
have
was
did
being
good.
easy for
My
once.
presentation must have been decent.
It was it was above decent, come on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly, and thank you,
You're welcome.
Mr. Raker, for giving us this primer, so there's no shock and awe next time around, right? That's a good opportunity. So we'll move past that, on to the next item, which is item F, consideration of a proposal to review and update the City of Clausen Master Plan. Nick? Oh, sorry about
90,
that.
ma'am.
Mr. Raker?
9E, ma'am.
Pardon me, I missed one?
To vote
90.
for-
That's because I scratched it off already, because you know me, I'm always in a hurry to get through this stuff. So let's go back to item E, which is discussion of PA 359 of 1925, as it potentially relates to the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget.
Yes, ma'am. So keyword being potentially, as it relates. And also, this was something that was sent to you as a bit of a primer for your consideration. So PA 359 of 1925 allows the city council to levy a millage that would collect up to only $50,000 specifically for the promotions of the city. These funds would be used to improve, maintain the city website, reestablish a citywide quarterly newsletter, upgrade the Main Street electronic message board, and also fund Text My Gov costs. This would be a new tax that would be included during approval of the budget, should council be interested in pursuing this revenue option. So you're looking at to generate $50,000 that comes to a potential cost of less than $1 a month per household.
Okay, thoughts? Councilmember Sampson?
I'm not for it or against it right now, but if we're going to even think about it, I'd like to see for Text.gov is going to cost us this much, and this is what we're going to do with it. Mrs. Moffett had a great thing that I think we should go back to somehow on the cable channels. I know just what she was saying. A lot of my friends are like, I used to turn this channel on and it was there. And I said, what's on the internet? And they're like, they get this big eye in the middle. They got no idea what we're talking about. So I would like to see what are you going to do for them and how much is it going to cost us in this new tax. And actually break each one of these items down and tell us what the improvement's going to be and what the cost of the improvements would cost. And then let's talk about adding a new tax.
Okay.
Or is there other ways we can do it too?
Okay. Councilmember Aronson?
Yeah, I pretty much agree with what Councilman Sampson said, that I think our biggest priority is getting the cable news channel, or the cable communication channel up. Again, 50,000. I think Kelly, you told us last year, 1 mil will get us around $430,000 in revenue per year.
Last year, yes.
As of last year. So at 50,000, you're looking at like a little over 1/10 of a mil. So it's not a lot of money, but I agree, it's very visible, because essentially we're asking this council to levy the millage. And I think maybe it doesn't necessarily look good to the citizens if we're just, even though it's a small amount of money, if we're just go ahead and impose that unless we have a really good reason to do so. And I think, getting on the cable, I think, is probably a more important reason.
Thank you. And I apologize, I called you Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem. How about you? Councilmember Tinlin?
Thank you. I guess I'll just kind of mirror what everyone else is saying too. To look at this spend is just having a good communication and promotion plan, who the target audiences are. I'd like to see website improvements, the cost behind that. So I'd be open to the discussion, but definitely with a plan on how we're going to spend it and the goals around this.
And Councilmember Shepherd?
Yeah, I'd just like to see what the cost is for each of these projects. Perhaps one is essential, other may not be. I'm not sure about cable, but the newsletter. I think that's probably more tactile and more something that people can receive and probably hang around, get for easy reference. That's, I think, probably more important than any other ones. But I think they all have merit. And again, it's up to $50,000. This could be like $15,000 potentially. So it just depends. I'd like to see what that is.
Right, I agree with everyone's thought that they'd like to see a breakdown of what these costs would be. I'd also like to see how we covered them in the past, because these are all items that we've addressed in the past, and curious why we need additional funds to do things that we used to always do. And then also, I'm really leery of asking for money from our residents for something like this, even for the $50,000 range. I think this is something that would be a perfect example of something we could do with our ARPA funds, because it is kind of an extra. And maybe if we want to make the programs a little bit bigger and broader and a little splashier to meet these needs that you've addressed, but also to maybe go a little bit beyond for communication, that it might be a good look there. Just my thoughts. So if anyone has, yes, Nick?
Just some clarity on the cable channel. So the council meetings, planning commission meetings, et cetera, they're not shown live on cable. They're shown after the meeting's complete, and the next day, the day after that, we try and upload them to the cable channel, and there's a schedule that does have a guide on it that shows up. And so the previous meeting from the last 2 weeks is uploaded to the cable channel until we change it. So the software hardware has changed with using Merge Live, and we do try and upload the previous meetings onto cable as soon as we can.
So what's the lag time then? Is it just a day or is it 2 weeks?
It's a day. It's having the staff put it on the channel, and I believe we've implemented a good plan to make sure it's done the next day.
Is there a possibility that we could utilize our old equipment and then get it up and running at the same time? Is that something perhaps Merge Live could do, get it linked to Comcast so that part of it is watching it live, right? I think, people who've traditionally done it for many, many years like to do things the same way. And we're talking like a certain segment of population that deserves our attention as well. And I think it's just a reality. So if it's not a huge cost impediment to try and go backwards and address the instant for Comcast, it would be nice to do. And if it's cost prohibitive or if it's just not possible, then we don't do it. But if we could just address it and once and for all, maybe kind of say this is why we can or can't do it, and then let us make a decision based on what the parameters are, it would be greatly respected, I think, for everybody.
And we need to add all the providers.
Yeah, I was going to say, how many providers do we have?
Wow.
Is it just two, or?
AT&T, Xfinity.
Well, do we have to use everybody? Because I know other communities utilize one, right? Usually it's the provider that they get a deal with. I don't know. Things might have changed some, but I don't know that it necessarily has to go to all. Has it always gone to all the providers here? Has it always just been one covers the live broadcast and it's accessible there, and then you can get it everywhere else? I can't imagine it being on streaming everywhere live.
I don't.
Put it on WOW gives them a benefit.
What's that?
Put it only on WOW would give them a benefit,
Gives WOW a benefit, or the people who have WOW a benefit, but the people who have,
because it would drive people in our city to have to go to WOW.
well, we don't care. Like that's not our dime, right? We don't care who people use. I don't use WOW, although I know people love it. But like we don't want to be wherever it was before, which was Comcast, I think, because Comcast was always the.
Wow.
There's WOW.
It was on WOW too. So I don't know. I'm not a technical person.
Madam Mayor, it comes down to the franchise PEG fees that you see on the bill. AT&T uses phone lines. They don't use cable lines. There's some back and forth about, it's all kind of muddled. I can look into this. I sit on the Inter-County Cable Association, and so I can find out what equipment we have, who we can plug into easily. Does someone owe us some equipment? I'll work with Ken at Merge to figure that out.
Great, thanks.
Okay.
And that would be
In
wonderful.
a couple weeks, I can figure that out.
Sounds good.
That's it?
And I have the direction on this PA 359 in preparation for the budget and what you're looking for justifications.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you. Now we'll move on to item F. I just wanted to do F before, right? So we'll go to consideration of a proposal to review and update the City of Clawson master plan. Who's addressing, Nick? Oh,
I'll
hi.
give a brief little update, and then I'll probably kick it to Jill. So for the last couple of months, the Planning Commission has been reviewing the master plan and the potential concept of reviewing it and identifying a couple of points that would ideally be addressed in the next master plan review. So those points were infrastructure, the potential school district site development at Shulman Baker, parking, building on the sustainability framework, expanded mixed-use development in certain districts, reevaluation of the BRD districts in the West 14-mile corridors, and then the downtown development master plan. So those were just 7 specific items the Planning Commission, with consultation of Giffords Webster and the city staff, has identified as 7 potential options to work towards addressing in the next master plan, among another of other items. And during a couple Planning Commission meetings ago, the Planning Commission approved the request to City Council to ask to conduct a master plan review, and so Giffords Webster did provide that, and that was provided in your packet. And I will now kick it to Jill if you want to provide the overview for the proposal.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
No.
Can't hear me at all? Hold on. How about that? Can you hear me?
Not well.
Very faint.
Very faint.
Okay. How about if I hold it a little bit closer? Does that help?
That improves.
Okay. All right, well, I'll try to speak a little louder and a little more directly into the microphone. Thank you for allowing me to come in with your meeting remotely today. Just to give you a quick review of the master plan, I think Nick gave a good job of giving you the background on how we got here. The proposal itself just goes through the steps that are associated with developing that master plan. I think just highlighting a couple things. Number one, with the task of the data collection and inventory. You may recall that when we started the master plan amendment with the special study area that we did with the school sites, we did a lot of that already. So we just may need to update a little bit. So we don't have a lot of hours associated with that task in here because that some of the work's already been done, which has been great. We do have these different modules associated with doing additional study and data gathering, and then long-range planning for infrastructure, including those school site developments right into this master plan, keeping it part of the overall master plan itself. Looking also at parking, sustainability and resiliency, certainly working off of the framework that's been developed by the Sustainability Committee. We're excited to see that incorporated into the city's master plan for the future, as well as looking at mixed-use development and kind of reevaluating the BRD districts at 14 Mile and North Main corridors. So just, I think, looking to be maybe provide more flexibility, more direction, or being more proactive with having development within those areas. And then we think probably one of the biggest components of the plan is the implementation chapter itself. So trying to be as specific as we can about engaging and clear action strategies that relate to the goals that we lay out in the rest of the master plan. And so those items are included there as well. And then the statutory requirements, certainly providing all the noticing, but then also facilitating public hearing and adoption. And so that brings us to wrapping it up at the end. So I'm happy to answer any other questions that you have about scope or anything else that's included in here or not included.
Is this our 5-year requirement?
Yes. So you're required by the state of Michigan to do a review of your plan every 5 years. So the Planning Commission's been looking at this, and they've made some recommendations that the master plan be updated to address these specific items that are included here.
I just have a question. Were these goals developed with the Planning Commission?
Yes.
Jill, this is Joe Rakers, ma'am, if I may. This is Joe Rakers, City Manager. With this update, then, it's pretty substantial. Will then we be on a 5 years to update again, but then would this constitute like the actual master plan has like a shelf life for 10 years? Then would that kind of reset that 10-year threshold?
Right. I think so. And I think that the requirement for the 5-year review is really, we're checking in with the plan in 5 years because we can't anticipate. We don't know everything that's going to happen, right? We can predict the best that we can, but things change within our community, things change in other communities that affect our community. So at the 5-year point, we really check in, see if there's anything new that we really need to be addressing. But if there isn't, maybe there's just minor things that we are tweaking or studying. One example, and I was going to say, you don't have to wait 5 years either. For example, we had the schools site study that we did, and that was just something that hadn't really been accounted for in the last master plan. So that was a special study that we did. And so you can do things like that as well in the intervening years. But I think this plan is intending to be more of that longer term vision. We are working on the downtown plan with the DDA. And so this presents a really nice opportunity to tie all of these things together and create a document that we're really all working towards the same things, regardless of kind of where we're at.
So the last one was done in 2020? 2018.
2018,
right, so-
2017 maybe.
17, I think.
That's what I thought. I thought I was on planning when that happened, right? 2017. And then I'm just looking at the $45,750 because we're always doing another study or another something that costs, a considerable amount of money. So the items that would be included in this, I saw the breakdown that you sent us. All essential, not all essential. Like you will do all of what was given, or you will get in and see what needs to be done, because it says not to exceed 45.7. So I'm assuming your goal is to get close to that, but anyway, that can be less. Or is this something we can get a price from someone else to see if it's cheaper? And I know you're our planners of record, but I think we have to be concerned about that too.
So real quick, the idea would be to, pending the approval tonight, would be to have that first task taken care of in this fiscal year, so before June 30th. And then next fiscal year, the bulk of this 45 would be undertaken. And so I do have that tentatively budgeted for in the building and planning department budget. And then obviously this is more than 12 months, so we'll go into that next fiscal year and we'll budget accordingly based on how much work we have left. Now when it comes to the costs, we can absolutely go out for bid if that's deemed necessary by the council. But Giffords, they've gotten us this far, and I think they've got a good idea of what we need in the future. So
I mean, I know they do a fine job, but I don't know when the last time their contract was reviewed, or just for pricing. We check out pricing for everything, and I just think it's our due diligence to ensure that we do that too. And I have no doubt that they'd come in competitive, and they might just win our hearts again. But I think it's something we should look at.
We have a document for when the last time we bid on it. You have it on your computer?
I do not. What is it you're looking for?
Yeah, you gave us the document for all our vendors and when the last time we bid on it. That would be something to look at next meeting, the last time we bid on it.
It's just us doing due diligence, right? Like, we need to take care of what we need to take care of, but, there's always extras too, and I don't want to limit our planning department. I certainly don't want to limit what we can do to promote the community. You've done a great job of putting, what I always liked about you in the beginning was you guys do great reports, and you do provide, you're active with us, and that's great. Joe's a great representative at our meetings and stuff. But saying all of that, let's talk numbers a little bit too.
Well, and I would say that, the Planning Commission did think through the nodules, and they developed the scope of work based on a lot of discussion. But if and we always understand that cost is a concern, and we try to be mindful of that. But if there's a specific, if you say, well, you know what, this is too much, we want it to be this price, then we can look at refining the modules, and we can say, well, maybe if we take out one of these items, we can bring the cost of that down a little bit more. One thing I think I would note is that, this includes just the work, because we already include our meetings with you under our retainer package. So, you're not saving money, but you're not paying extra for us to attend your meetings, because we're already coming to those meetings with the Planning Commission. We've done a lot of the work, as I said, with the school sites. We've got a lot of that study and that chapter underway. We had a lot of the existing condition data already completed as well. It's I would say, this is going to sound self-serving, because we want to do the work. We want to keep working with you. But if you said we'd like an updated master plan, you'd need to, I think, set some parameters or set some boundaries on what that might look like. Because it's not like you would be asking for someone to give you the same exact product, right? It would be something that would be different from person to person, consultant to consultant. And then it may not just be, you may not be making a decision just strictly based on cost, but really looking at, what's included and how that aligns with what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I
not-
understand all of that, and I also
Yeah,
understand, you know, your
I
meetings and
understand.
stuff are separate, so that just means that this $45,750 is an additional $45,750 for the services that you'll be providing, right, outside of that, so that's a win. That's a win for the company that's providing the additional services, and you should be paid for everything that you do for us, absolutely. I just say we should ensure that we are getting that we're ready to spend the money, that it's necessary to spend the money. If we are nickeling, we're getting ready to get in a budget season where we're looking at what we do. We don't have enough to do everything that we've always done. I'm asking us to just be aware of what we're spending and ensure that we are getting, one, good value, and two, that we're getting what we actually need and not necessarily what's being sold to us. And don't take that disrespectfully, but, you're the planner, you present. Our people need to accept it, and they have, but, it's a two-part process. Just because it's presented doesn't mean we have to accept.
If I may interject, Madam Mayor?
Sure.
So the one thing that I will say is that Gibbles Webster did a fantastic job of getting the module scope, and that comes from the years of service that they've had imparted. So I think it'd be hard to surmise the startup cost of an outside provider coming in here and getting up to speed and then providing something comparable. So if council is so inclined, maybe I can work with Jill. If you have a pencil sharpener, maybe we can get together and I can bring this back to council for their reconsideration after we further refine some things and make greater justifications and also look at the contracts.
Sounds good to me. Anyone?
Madam Mayor, as far as the timeline, looks like it's 18 months from beginning to end. Is that an accurate statement, or is that, are some of these done in parallel as far as the each task?
Some of them may be done in parallel. Generally, I would say that a master plan is a 12 to 15 month process. So I think that would be the similar case here.
Okay.
Just we have usually the work portion is maybe 11 to 12 months, but then we have that review period, that 63-day review periods before the public hearing. So that always takes us a little bit. We got to account for that before we can adopt it.
Yeah, it's a long process. I haven't gone through it before.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I just was curious on if there's anything that can be tightened up on as far as the timeframe. But if it's already being done in
Absolutely.
in parallel, some things can be done in parallel. I think some of the things that were already done with the Sustainability Committee can dovetail into what the Planning Commission will look at.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say we're probably around a year.
Any other comments? Okay, thank you, Jill. Appreciate your time
Thank you.
today.
Thank you. Good comments.
Thanks.
I'll see you soon.
So then the will of council is to bring this back as old unfinished business then at the next council meeting?
Sounds good.
Will do.
Okay, great. Then we will move on to discussion on establishing fiscal year 2023-24 goals. And I don't know if anyone really thought we would get to 2023-24 goals before maybe 25 or 26. So here we are. Congratulations, right? Since we've postponed this a few times. So, Mr. Raker, do you want to lead this?
Sure, I'll give it an attempt. I mean, so we've been down this road a couple times, an attempt to get the conversation started. Since Councilmember Tinlin's been on board, him and I have had a conversation in regards to what can be perceived as a goal, as what can be perceived as like maybe a to-do or a wish list. And so the conversation between the two of us was a lot of the things that we had discussed from our previous meeting from January 11th. Some of it hits on more of the goals of what we strive to be, and some of it is on particular items. And so I think my suggestion would be that we try to graduate to what we are striving to be as opposed to a punch list of to-do things, because I think the punch list of to-do things would support what we ideally are striving to be, as far as Kelly sent this to me, a goal to deepen the sense of place in community identity. I mean, they may sound a little idealistic, to increase the transparency of government, to increase communication and understandability of government actions. These kind of things are more along the lines of kind of a goal that I am rationalizing, as opposed to if we say, hey, our goal is to have a safe and functional road system. Okay, that's a goal. Are we going to do it in 1 year? No. But will we be able to rationalize in the budget, like, hey, this miscellaneous concrete plan supports this goal, and this goal is to improve the roads throughout Clawson, or this goal is to improve public safety in Clawson. Will this flock camera, which is something that is used to identify and track vehicles of suspect, is something that would contribute to the overall increased security or safety of the community. So you have the kind of idealistic approach, and then you would have the to-dos underneath it. So I don't think in our conversations we've gotten that far. And so I just throw that out there for your consideration and discussion with council.
I agree with you 100% that these should be.
What was that? I'm sorry, ma'am?
I agree with you 100%. Write that down, everyone.
I did. I wrote it down.
Wait, aren't you going to go up and high five me? There should be some
Well, me too.
formality to
I'll
this.
give you some
I'll meet you halfway even. I know some of you enjoyed that, and some of you are like, what the heck? But yeah, typical city council meeting, what the heck? I agree with you, because I think goals are supposed to be broad, right? And then they're supposed to be the goal. They're supposed to be the ideal, right? Like something to work towards, and then you need all those little steps to get there, because rarely do you just cross something off a list. I mean, we could have a to-do list if that's what everyone wants to do, then we change it to a to-do list instead of a goal-setting workshop. But I agree with that, and I think you hit one of mine on my list right there, Kelly. Good job with that, because that's the communication I was looking for, straight up, and it's not on any one person or one entity. It's all of us working together, and however we do that, whether it's the proposal to spend allocate $50,000 on services to provide to the community, or whether it's us figuring out better ways to ensure that documents come in, get disseminated in the appropriate manner, the appropriate time, all of that under one umbrella is perfect. So I support that, and I will say communication is number one, and I'll take that one off my list because I like the way
It was
she
actually on your
worded it.
list, and I looked at yours and then Councilmember Sampson, which was roads.
Yeah.
And so I just used those two as examples. But we can develop those, the staff can, in conjunction, and then with the to-do lists, and then quite honestly, as we come to you with things to move something forward, we can say, this item, we're coming to you because this item supports this goal of improved communication. And that's how we would do it. And these things become more interconnected, the budget, the capital improvement plan,
Yeah.
and so on.
Yeah,
So-
make them all relatable, and then
Yes.
it satisfies people. I think that's great. Councilmember Sampson?
We need to have one more workshop, because Mr. Tenlin wasn't here at the time.
Councilmember Simpson, you're a little soft. Would you get a little closer to the microphone so we can pick it up?
Oh, that helps.
I said, we need to have one more workshop, because Councilman Tenlin wasn't here. We need to go over all our individual goals, group them together and pick 5. And then he can put together what he wants for how do we get to, to good roads? How do we get to whatever fancy words you're going to put to it? But it really boils down to how many of us here want to do the roads, how many want to do this. And not just fancy words, but we need to say we don't have to have them done in 1 year, but we can make a goal to do it in 3 or 5. And as long as we're all the goals and all the sub-goals from Mr. Riker and the people that work for him, as long as they all match, then we all know we're working to do a good job on the roads, to do a good job on communications, to do, we have 5 things that we think are most important in this town.
Why don't we have the time tonight, if you guys are amenable to this, why don't we select 5 items today? 5's the magic number. And then let's just give a broad umbrella, and then let's give everyone time to fine tune it a little bit, and then come back and maybe not do a special, I'm not opposed to a special meeting, but I feel like we could do it. I feel like we could do it here in a really small amount of time, and then just have enough to work with that will get us through the budget sessions, because I think that's the important thing, is to identify our goals so those can be worked into that plan. I don't know that a special meeting, if you guys think it's necessary, I don't know that it's
I
necessary.
believe it'd be good to at least do it at the end of this week or next week. Give everybody a day to think of what they want. Now they've looked at all the goals that we all had. Have them come back with, hey, I want to redo mine, take this off and put this on. Then we all vote, so we can all vote on 5 things that we all agree on, and not just try to cram it down everybody's throat today saying, pick some 5. Because we're going to pick 5 that people are going to like or not like. I would like to do just, it can be a 1-hour meeting, put a limit on 1 hour. We can do it in an hour, but we need to put the effort into doing it right to 1 hour.
Well, I think if we look at this list, there are a lot of items in here that some are just tasks, so we remove them right off the bat.
Yeah.
And then some of them, we do have some consensus on what we want to achieve. And if we could just select them today, like my goal would be today, but I'll defer to Councilman Tinlin. What do you think?
Me again, right?
Yeah, well, you're just next to me, so.
Okay, so, yeah, what we're talking about really is establishing strategic categories, fancy terms, right? I did, again, yellow sticky notes, so I did look at what we had talked about in January 11th in 2023, or you did, and I think there's common categories already. If you want to call it communication, it looks like city administration and council. A lot of things, these discussions were infrastructure, if we had a category like that. So I guess I could throw, if we wanted to spend some time, we could do that, because that's what we'd be doing in a special meeting, establishing those strategic categories. And one question I have, since I have everyone here, is does our city have a vision statement? That normally drives strategic goals. And the vision statement is our vision for the future, right? What do we want to be? A lot of communities have them. If you go to a lot of their websites, they actually state their vision statements, and guess what? Right behind that are strategic goals. So I know that's probably not on this agenda, but that's just my thoughts on that too, if we maybe did have one at one time.
I feel like there should be one.
Yeah.
I think we have one. I think that,
Councilmember Shepherd, what are your thoughts here?
I could go either way, whether we punt for another meeting or hash it out tonight. Obviously, there's some things have changed. The more we wait, the more fluid this becomes, and I'd rather, hone down on those key items. The one thing that has changed in my mind that I didn't consider previously was the effect of the costs of materials and inflation and what that is going to do to any project that we have, and whether or not we need to consider setting aside some of funds in order to at least, and it's not a savory thing to say, but set aside those funds in order to protect for those cost increases.
But that's not really part of the goal-setting workshop, right?
No,
I mean,
but it's
ultimately,
cost avoidance is being one. One of the things that I think we've been hearing and we've been saying is like we want to try and keep our costs down. We want to be as financially responsible as possible, right? So, and whether or not that's using ARPA funds for that, I'm just throwing that out there at this point, because that's something that, as we continue to move forward, I keep seeing projects that the scope, the cost is continuing to increase, and we can't just continue to pay that unless we have something to help alleviate those, and maybe it's the ARPA funds. And I know that, again, that's not a popular or fun thing to say, because I think we have some other ideas with that. But maybe that's a reconsideration of it, and I think that needs to be considered on how do we consider the future cost impacts of material and labor and inflation.
So I see that coming underneath a goal that would be ensuring our financial success, right? So, and that would be looking at established policies and procedures and ensuring that we are utilizing best practices in our purchasing, in our expenditures, right? And just our day-to-day. And then that would be part of like looking at contracts that may be expired or that may just need a review. I know Kelly's worked hard on what she showed us tonight. That's just a way of ensuring that we show accurate dollars for what we're doing. So all of that kind of could come underneath that because that's, of course, viable, very important for what we're going to do moving forward, but not necessarily a distinct, it doesn't need to be a distinct goal, right? The goal could be financial viability or what, I don't know. Kelly, you're good at the phrasey things.
Resiliency?
Yeah, I have no good phrases at 8:30 at night after the day I had today. But does that make sense to anyone? So then,
It comes back to sustainability, financial status, sustainability, right? And whether or not we can, pay for the things that, and account and project what those costs may be, and if we have money that's available, whether or not that's something we need to consider.
well, and that would just be part of the overall umbrella of ensuring that our processes and procedures and our practices are all defined.
I think when we start getting into that, you start getting into my role.
No, I
And
don't want.
That's what
Yeah.
that's not what I'm.
Yeah,
trying
no,
to-
we don't want to do your job. Like, we don't want to do that. But if the whole idea is a goal, right, and the goals are going to fall onto you anyways, we're not doing the goals. We're just putting them out there and saying, these are things that are important to us that we'd like to ensure that we are looking at in some function or
Yeah,
another.
what I-
Not to rework anything that's already, well, maybe fine tune some things that are already out there. And I know, I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine. I just wanted to gently interrupt. Since the city manager passed around this document, maybe we give him an opportunity
Oh,
to
sure.
read it whereas we are at the OMA.
Sure, so if, what I handed out is just to try and graduate from what we've done thus far as providing lists to try to create some type of actionable mindset with our goals. Kelly had produced this some time ago and then brought it to my attention again today with the hopes that we'd have this conversation, so here we are. The following goals, and these are broad, but they're, I think, applicable, or they can be curtailed to our desires. So goal 1, deepen a sense of place and community identity. That actually is reflective also in the master plan. Foster an engaged, informed community. Goal 3, cultivate organizational excellence. Goal 4, provide efficient, resilient government. Goal 5, ensure a safe and comfortable environment for everyone. Goal 6, encourage environmentally sustainable practices. So those 6 are broad in nature. They're not the brainchild of either one of us, but they are out there and they're usable, and we may be able to use them and just kind of bend them to our liking, and then we could probably fit the majority of this list would then fall up underneath a lot of these things.
And our fine city attorney was concerned about this paper being handed out and
I'm happy to
not
read it.
being addressed, her process and procedure rules, right?
Thank you.
Yeah. Just-
So, yeah, and that's, Nick got it up on the screen for
Oh,
us.
thank you very
perfect.
much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so we just wanted to, we weren't sure if we were gonna get this far. We are, and so, there it is. So, that would be, if it's council's desire, staff could go back, use these 6 as just a template. Council can reflect on them, and however you may want to adjust them at some point in time. And staff can plug in your lists under how we can, address these within this goal-setting framework. And then through the budget workshops, if you want to, in the first one, because the first budget workshop is really just a presentation. This is the budget, these are our expenditures, these are our revenues, these are kind of like our big projects that we'd like to do. And it's kind of, that's kind of it. And then we could have a further refinement if you wanted to on these items. And then, or if there's a major departure, then I guess we would have an issue. But I'm not sure if there's a major departure from picking 5 or taking all 6 of these and just making them more, Clausenize them, I guess.
Where
So-
do you put in the roads for all the people that we promised last year? That was one of our goals. You wanted to fix some roads and we never got them done. We're down to 2, one out of the 2 we're getting closer on. Where do you tell the people here? That's goal number Which one does the other three projects go in the better?
I mean,
better
you-
project you wanted and all that? You know, where do them go with their goals, saying we want to get this done in this lifetime?
I agree.
Yeah.
However,
Well, that
I
could
would
go
say
under
go
five.
to 5, ensure
Right, yeah.
a safe and comfortable environment for everyone. I mean, it's not very comfortable for people to drive down Dreon. I mean, I get that. So we're trying to
people.
address these things. It's not the safest, and so we're trying to address, I mean, you can nuance this to death, I mean, but this seems like kind of the broad strokes, and then apply the to-dos underneath those broad strokes.
There's a lot of
Suggestion.
broad strokes that'll never get done, because there's nothing to do there, actually, it's just all words.
What are you talking about?
We can't hear you very
Yeah.
well. Can you please, I can't even hear you and I'm
Oh,
too
really?
away.
There's no real substance to get something done, like if you put this under 5, what's 5 say?
Ensure a safe and comfortable environment for everyone.
Right. How many?
Please use the microphone and, yeah, thank you, sir.
Road projects do we say this year we do to make everybody feel comfortable?
Well, I personally think that's.
So you can do 1 or you can do 50.
It's not
So we
feasible
can-
to do 50. I mean, we're
No, but
trying to
it-
do 3. We've got half of one done last
We have
year for
none here.
various reasons.
We have none here. So that means that,
And that's the difference between, that's what we're talking about, between a goal and a to-do list.
So let's give Mayor Pro Tem Anderson an opportunity because we've all given input and he's had none to this point.
Well, I'm reading the goals, and they all look good, but they do look a bit generic. And I think maybe what would be good is attached to each of these goals is a series of subtasks that, as Councilman Sampson said, maybe define these a little tighter. So, for example, ensure a safe and comfortable environment for all, that would be infrastructure. I guess other things, there's other metrics could be developed and tracked, like what's the crime rate in the city? You know, things like that. And I'm just thinking out loud here. But cultivate organizational excellence, you know, put a few subtasks there to kind of define what the substance of each goal is.
We could definitely do that.
and we could hold off until the first budget meeting and do the goals just before. If everybody thinks it's only going to take a half hour or hour, let's do it before the budget meeting. These are our goals. Okay, do the budget, they all match.
If it's going to take a half hour, let's do it now.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I do agree with that. If it's going to take a half hour, let's just use our minds and do it now. And, but I do think, I feel like Councilmember Sampson, you're looking for specifics.
Yeah, because
And
nothing got done last time, so I want specifics that we can actually quantify and say it was done or it wasn't done. You know, to say we got 10 projects out there, we did 1. Was that a great job? Did we do good or did we do bad? Oh, you met this goal because you got 1 done. We need to say, hey, we want these done this year, these done the following year, these done. So we have a way of measuring ourselves how we did on the roads, how we did on how much better communications got.
so you're looking for action items then? You're looking
Into the
for
goals that we can measure. So they're
deliverables.
quantifiable.
Okay, so, all right, so of the 6 goals that were provided to us, does anyone, they're very generic. Do you guys want to start with generic and then break them down? Is anybody good with doing this tonight, or do you really feel a need to do it in another environment?
I don't feel that we have to do it in a different night, but just for your own awareness, there was more to this.
Oh, yeah, I mean, we could pull 20 off of, yeah, right.
But we stopped at 6, and then this example had further examples. I just didn't want to be like, hey, this is the whole kit and caboodle all at once. So, but I think that we're making progress. It's just a matter of,
It's a good starting point, and I think out of each of one of them, we can take whatever the intent was there and perhaps build a stronger sense of what we want the Clausen version to look like. And I don't think it would take a lot, but you guys have to be willing to do it tonight. So I guess we need a consensus to see if anyone is interested in doing it tonight, or you want to start it on a fresh time. So,
Mine, I'd rather do it one meeting when our focus is just on that, not on other things that we're going home at 9 o'clock or 10:30, or, because once we start, it's going to be 10 o'clock.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I think, yeah, there's a lot here to be done, so I think probably a different meeting would be best.
Councilmember Tinlin?
Even though I'd like to jump in with my feet, I think maybe just having a little bit of thought and then having this in a separate meeting. Because this is exactly the journey I was hoping we were going to take with the vision, mission statements. And fancy words for what we're asking from Mr. Sampson is really we want the cascading key X's of the tactical action plan. And so we could start with this, and definitely I think it's the end result. So I think a separate meeting would help.
Councilmember Shepherd?
If there's more, I'd like to see more of it in order to, digest that and then process it and see if there's anything else and be able to, add whatever, thoughts that I have to it.
Well, it would help
So
if
that would
you could
mean-
resend all our notes.
Yeah,
That was on the board.
They're all in the packet. Received them 5 times.
Okay, then I guess consensus is that we will bring this up again. Let's schedule a meeting.
Pick a date?
Do we want to do it soon, or what's the goal?
When's the first budget meeting?
So if I may, so I did socialize with you the possibility of having a special meeting there. I don't have that need for the 11th. So, but on the 11th, we are competing with
Planning and charter.
with planning and charter on the 11th. It's not to say that we couldn't still do it. I mean, but what I can do is I'll send you the rest of this document, and then if you can allow staff, maybe we can kind of try and Clausenize it a little bit to further plug in. What I was thinking is maybe we just went down this list and you guys could identify which goal your list belonged to if you want to. Or staff could do that. It's your choice. The thing is, we're also doing the budget at the same time, and we're trying to make these kind of relevant to each other, so, which I think is going to happen in
Will
some
we
way.
have the budget meeting on April 19th? Is there time, if we worked on it before, having a segment there to do this?
Yeah, or we could have that part of the introduction of the budget, that, hey, this is where we're at with this. And if council wants to adjust those during that time, we could. If you want to set aside a specific time to adjust the goals and supporting objectives, and I'll provide this information, to build on this information. I'll provide it to you tomorrow because it's readily available in a separate email to all council. And from it, if there's a desire to call a special meeting, I mean, we're competing with a lot. So I'm.
That's you.
We got a lot going on, so I'm not sure it's going to be any more productive than what we do today or what I can share with you to build on in conversation on the 18th or 19th.
I feel like it should be done, if we're going to have a special meeting, if we're going to address this separately, that doing it before the budget meeting is not necessarily productive,
Let's do it on the 11th.
just because part of the whole idea of this is, I think some people have ideas that they wanted associated with the budget, and then when we're doing budget meetings, I know they're just introductions, but things are kind of set a little bit already, so if it provides a little bit of time for a consideration as opposed to just an introduction, it's probably time better spent for all of us, right? If we're going to put the time in for it. So just on the 11th, we have 2 meetings here. Both of those meetings tend to go long, so how could we get it in? Although.
Is there a venue that we could have?
We could go over to the library, or we could go.
6 p.m.
6 p.m., yeah. If we think it's only going to be an hour, so then we're stepping on charter at 6:30, correct?
Well, it depends on where you're going to be. So you want to be in this room?
If we were here from 6 to 7,
What
That'd
time
be
does
sufficient.
charter,
Charter
we can
starts
have it
at
filmed.
7:30.
The concern is there's nowhere else where we can film. I mean,
Yeah.
they already had a crew set up in the back, this is here, so.
They start at 7:30?
what date are we talking, the 11th?
Planning the 11th, yes.
All right, let me check something really quick.
The only option would be here before planning.
They missed the last meeting. Do we know if they have a full agenda the next meeting?
Yes, we plan on having a meeting.
Okay.
I can do the 11th at 6 or 6:10, if I'm late.
I'm good with the 11th.
Can you guys do 6?
I'm good with the 11th.
Okay.
And this is a workshop, not a special meeting, or is it a special meeting, not a
I'd
workshop?
call it a special
just-
meeting just in case there needs to be some type of action. I don't
Okay.
foresee that, but maybe there will be. And that gives me some latitude. If there's anything we have to add to the agenda, we can in preparation for the budget.
So that's the 13th.
Besides August, all of our meetings are special.
Don't
Are they not?
Sure.
6 PM?
11th at 6 PM. Okay, so you're gonna send everyone the list, an additional list. We're all going to put some time in and try and fine tune things that are important to you. We'll come back, we'll hash them out together, and then leave with something concrete. Sound good? Okay, great. Then that takes care of our discussion on establishing fiscal year 2023-24 goals, and we can move on to old unfinished business if there is any, of which there is not. And then we can move on to public comments for items not on the agenda. Number 10, old unfinished business. Do you have some? Or do you have public comment? Either one is good. Welcome.
My name's Ron McCauley. I live at 1008 West Selfridge. And of course, my subject is Selfridge. What's the plan to finish up Phillips? Have you had a meeting with the construction company?
We do have a meeting tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. to kick
Tomorrow?
off construction.
I knew it was delayed because of the, and the other thing is, when you talk to them, can you ask them about when they're gonna redo, fix our watering system so we can water our yards this year? Some comments I've heard is that they're not gonna do it until after they get done with Phillips, which will be, July, August, September. I need water before that on my yard,
We'll have an update for you before then.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. McCauley. Would anyone else like to speak?
Susan Moffett, kind of more of a question, kind of for Rennis. You did a good job having the document that Mr. Riker passed out, read into the minutes for Open Meetings Act, but there was also a document that was passed out on 9D, which was different than what was included in the packet. So 2 paragraphs were different. That needs to be read in the minutes as well.
It will be.
I have a note that said, get the stuff from Kelly is on my minutes notes, so they'll be in the packet.
Is it going to be read into the minutes, or is it?
I'll scan it in with the minutes, yes.
But shouldn't it be done here in the public so that we all can see it? I mean, that's, transparency, that everything should be made public. That was something that was shared here in the meeting with the council, and the public wasn't made aware of it. Just because we're under scrutiny, people are watching and that sort of thing. It is an Open Meetings Act violation technically, so I'm just bringing it up so you guys can fix it before we go home. That's all.
Thank you for that. Kelly, you're the one who knows. Can you identify what sections in this?
They're in red, ma'am.
Oh, they are in red, I see, yeah. I didn't open it because I read it before, so, okay. Do you want me to read what it says? Will that satisfy?
Yeah.
Is that good? Under page 4, under allocation of costs, it says this page replaces page 4 of original document outlining in more detail by Control Services Department. Do I need to read the whole thing, or is that good? Does that suffice?
That's the difference.
Technically speaking, it is a document that.
He's on.
I think it's on. It is a document that is attached to the agenda packet. August already planned to include it in the agenda packet, but Ms. Moffett is correct. Because it was referenced during the course of the meeting, it should be appropriately read out. So if you don't mind,
Well, of course.
or in the alternative, I'm happy to read it.
I don't mind, whatever. So it's not a big paragraph, so thank you, Kelly, for keeping this brief.
2.5 pages.
2.5 pages? Wait, you said there were only 2 changes, and I'm looking at 1 in red here, and it's only a line, and then page 5.
And then page 6 or 5.
Page 6 doesn't have red on it.
Oh, the 2 tables.
Tables. We should make Kelly read these out. She's the one that did this.
Why don't we post them on the,
Yeah, or you can,
yeah, we'll go over them.
Do that?
I can scan it in.
It's going to take a minute to scan it in.
Okay, then we'll,
We can carry on with the rest of the comments and come back.
yeah, let's do that. We'll come we'll come back to this in a couple moments. Would anyone else like public discussion? Is anyone else here for public discussion this evening? Okay, you're going to be part of our stall, but you guys don't want to play nice. We'll move on to the next item, which is City Clerk's office, City Clerk's report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I actually have two things. First being, it was mentioned earlier, we finally nailed down a time to have our committee meeting, our ad hoc committee meeting. That's going to be tomorrow. If we have to have another one, we'll let you know, but we're meeting tomorrow at 2 o'clock in the back room. I think we've nailed that time down. And second is kind of exciting. I got word from the county. As some of you know, the Proposal 2 passed a change election law in the state of Michigan. It requires a 9-day active voting period for state and federal elections. We were not planning on implementing it this year because it's not a state or federal election, and we weren't going to be the first ones to figure it out and try to do it on our own. But the county stepped up and said, anyone who's having an election in November, we will work with you to create this program for this 9 days of early voting as required next year so that we can figure it out. And so there'll be a cost-sharing part of it. I'm budgeting for it. But I think it'd be nice to give it a trial run once before we have to plug it into a presidential year next year. So I did agree with the county to take that project on. So we'll join a couple other cities in Oakland County and Macomb County and Wayne County that have local elections and figuring out the best practice for this. So we weren't going to do it, but on our own and try to figure it out. But with the county's help, we're going to take it on in November. So that just came about last week, Thursday.
Great. Any questions for our city clerk?
Just a reminder that we have 2 elections coming up this year, so including November, right?
Not yet.
They haven't figured that out yet?
Nope.
Okay.
As of right now, only November is scheduled.
Great, thank you very much. August City Attorney's report, please.
I didn't have anything this evening, but I'm happy to talk, to drag out, to buy time to Mick to post.
It's a mound visit.
I could go into a 45-minute legal dissertation on any topic. Filibuster. Filibuster.
Pass.
Thank you. Nothing this evening, thank you.
Our city manager's report.
Yes, ma'am. We've already covered the April 11th special meeting that is back on. And gentlemen from Southbridge did indicate that we will be meeting with AEW and Quality tomorrow to get the Southbridge Phillips project back underway. At the last meeting, Madam Mayor, you mentioned something about the CYBSL wanting to have a baseball game, so I reached out to Mr. Gaglio of CYBSL. He did get back to me today regarding clarification of their proposed game. In the past, CYBSL has played an opening day softball game versus police and fire. This year, their hope is to open it up to the community, city government, and school government. What he hopes is that between the city administration and school district, we could assemble a team to verse the CYBSL coaches. It can include anyone from the city side, include council, DPW, police, fire, school board. This is his hope. My intent is to negotiate with Coach August Gitchlack into taking on fielding this team.
Whoa, nice. I'll be your assistant coach, but I don't have to play, right?
I didn't know I had this duty until right now, so.
Can I be your assistant coach?
Sure.
Thank you. Can we get shirts?
Can't do it without it.
And since August...
Tracksuits.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Tracksuits is a different event. I'll talk about that next time.
We'll have knickers for these, right?
Okay, that'll be
Hi,
fun.
Sally.
Do you have anything else for us?
No, ma'am.
Okay, great. So that gets us to the city manager's report, and I see that is up now. So Kelly, do you mind coming and just explaining to us what's new?
So on page 4 of the report is where the changes start. The paragraph above the table, hopefully the table's on there, is additional. As noted, one requirement in developing the allocation plan was to determine how each central service department cost would be allocated. The basis used for allocating specific department costs is not mandated. However, it is important that all bases be reasonable, fair, and not overly complicated to calculate. In selecting allocation basis, an effort was made to balance the greatest degree of accuracy with a manageable level of data collection effort. In every case, the chosen basis is reasonably associated with causal relationships between the central services cost and the provision of services to other funds. Specifically, central service department costs have been allocated on the following basis. And do you want me to read each one of these items in the table?
Our city attorney says no.
Okay, so you have the various central services department, what functions were allocated, and the allocation basis for each of those functions. On page 5, there was an additional sentence added stating, additionally, costs associated with support of city council are not allocated as those functions are legislative and not operational. And then all items below that were also updated, including two-step allocation process. The initial process of allocating costs to all general fund departments and other funds resulted in some central service departments being allocated costs from other central services departments. I think that's a error there. All costs allocated to central service departments were summed and reallocated based on the relative size of the initial allocations. The secondary allocation results in a more comprehensive assignment of central services cost. Allocation of cost to funds, to other funds. The developed allocation plan includes $982,000 in central services costs that could be assessed to other funds in the upcoming fiscal year, and that is the table below it. Estimated administrative cost allocations for budget year 23-24 are summarized in the table. Highlighted funds will be assessed indirect costs in the upcoming budget year. And on the last page, as a result of the cost allocation plan, the general fund will recover almost $572,000 in the next budget. Maintaining and updating the allocation spreadsheet. The allocation spreadsheet developed for Clausen has been designed to serve the city on an ongoing basis for future years. While the allocation calculations are required primarily for budget purposes, the data feeding into the calculations must be maintained throughout the year. To ensure the most accurate allocation of central service costs, the city will need to have current and complete information available. Primary data components that will need to be maintained are included in the table above, summarizing the allocation of central services costs by function and allocation basis. Integration with user fee study. As noted previously, the cost allocation model was developed as part of the user fee study to ensure the full cost of services were included in the fee calculations. One approach used to estimate appropriate fees is the fully loaded hourly rate of city departments that provided direct services to the public. Through the cost allocation process, central service costs were allocated to all general fund departments as well as to other funds. The allocated department costs were added to the budgeted department cost to arrive at the total true cost of each department. For departments providing fee-based services, the total cost was then divided by the annual department staff hours to arrive at an hourly rate for each department.
Well said. Well said.
Thank you.
Nicely done. That takes us back to our agenda, and that would be item 15 for city council comments. Councilmember Shepherd.
No comment.
Councilmember Tinley.
Just one. Just for the city council notification, we did get the performance tool document back from legal review. So the goal is to get this back to the city council hopefully by next meeting for the review.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
No comments.
Councilmember Sampson.
You have one question for city manager. We made a comment about another project you want to add, or on Batter, or Troy area, Troy.
Yeah, that's Batter for, in regards to an opportunity where Troy is working in their right-of-way, and we do not have a right-of-way there on Batter, nor do we have a water main, and we have a water pressure issue there that we would like to address. That would be something that would be addressed through the water fee rate, which we'll discuss on the 18th.
How's it fed now?
Pardon me?
How's it fed now, all the custom, all the?
There isn't one on Batter, and there's not a water main on Batter. We don't have a right-of-way. Troy has the right-of-way. They're doing work in their right-of-way, and they're allowing us to piggyback on them doing work right now. So now is the time for us to take this into consideration. It would improve the water pressure in that area, and it would also provide water main to several properties on Batter that currently do not have it.
That's it? Okay, so I would like to say congratulations to Chef Hajime Sato, the owner of Sozai. He has been named as a finalist for the James Beard Award, which is an extremely prestigious award for culinary people. So Clausen, as you know, his restaurant received a great award last year, a high distinction, and I think that's just amazing that he personally is up for that type of thing. So that'd be another nice feather in our cap that we can piggyback on for someone in their great deeds in Clausen. And then other than that, I'd just like to say Happy Easter to everyone who celebrates Easter. I hope you have a great weekend. If you don't celebrate Easter, have a great weekend anyways, and spend some time with your family and just have a, some good time. Let's look for some spring. And with that, anyone want to make a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
Roll call, please.
Tinlin?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Milan?
Yes.
Sampson?
Yes.
Shepherd?
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.
Back to the other.